All right, welcome everybody around the world. Welcome to all my subscribers. I'll say it again. Welcome to everybody around the world, and welcome to all my subscribers. Uh, it's ironic. It's ironic because very soon the known world as we know it will no longer be the same. And it's what I've been warning about for a very long time, and I mean that. Sorry, I mean that in a major way. Nothing slight. So there's a lot that I want to cover in this video. And this video here is probably, arguably, even for myself, going to be one of the most important videos that I've ever made in all these years. And while I was just mulling around in my kitchen before sitting down to actually finally start the video, some words came to me. I'm not going to claim that I heard God speak them, but these words came to me in my mind. And, it doesn't usually happen like that. It wasn't like I was consciously thinking them and constructing them myself, but it was it was like a realization, and the realization relayed this to me like silently, was that the time for teaching is drawing to a close. Even the time of warning is drawing to a close. Now you stop and think about that, right? The time for teaching drawing to a close, you would think, oh my gosh, well, why would God or anybody say that? Why would that be a thing? You should always teach up until the very end. The second statement, even the time of warning is drawing to a close. And you stop and think about that. Why would it be the time of warning is drawing to a close? Well, it's because there's not going to be any time left to warn. And then the last statement was, the time for preparation has now begun. And those words, even though I didn't construct them in my own mind, when they came to my mind, even if it was just me subconsciously thinking them through the realizations of the impact of all this news I'm about to share, those words are true. Okay, because we are on the brink, on the cusp of this big thing that is going to happen. And like I said, I've got a lot to share. I've got some material that I wrote and did many, many years ago. I'm going to be reading that too when I had my experiences with God, because all of that has now been certifiably, proven to be true based on what we've heard. And anyways, but first I want to talk about the news. Well, I put out a video earlier today uh, talking about this, but then since then, more information has come out. Now, the first video was, there was, word had gotten out that, members of government or military or both had asked various church leaders to come to a secret meeting, okay, and that they were given UFO ET disclosure so that they could start warning their congregations, because it was perceived that it would upend Christianity, right? So that's what my short video was about earlier today. But that was just the tip of the iceberg, because now one of the pastors who was in the meeting, at least one, has come out and talked about what was in that meeting. And he is being reserved and not saying everything. He has, because the public hasn't been given the disclosure. They've been told what they can, what they can't say. They can't name any names. Certain things they can't get into detail yet. But what this gentleman, I kind of know his face. I don't even know his name, to be honest. But he was one of the pastors who attended. He said there's more than one meeting. The meetings were like happening around the same time, but there's one group of pastors who had been called, and it was split into like a second group. And good to see you, man. You got to hear this information, man. This is crazy. So what he relayed was my worst fears, what I knew what was coming, because I've put videos about this and warned exactly what is going to happen and be said and everything, right? I've been warning about that for ages, but my worst fears came true, so to speak, because here was this pastor who was actually in the meeting, and he relayed exactly what I've warned, what I dubbed the dark scenario, the dark narrative, the dark narrative, sorry. It's ironic that just earlier today or yesterday, whenever, I think it was today when I made that short video, uh, just the tip of the iceberg type video. um, I didn't know what had been relayed in the meeting at all. And I don't think anybody else did until the pastor and maybe another pastor started to share it, but they were allowed to share. But it is the dark narrative. So ironically, I was right. But again, all this confirmation just further proves absolutely that I was right all along, and that's not a reason for celebration. That's a reason for solemn, retrospective thought about life and everything. So just hear me out for this video, everybody. Right? So it is the dark narrative. So that's confirmed now. The reason why the pastor was saying that the congregations have to be warned is that, like I said in my video earlier, they didn't specify this, but it's the logical reasons because America is a majority Christian country, right? So, you know what I mean? If you're going to give the public of a Christian majority country alien UFO disclosure, right, that would upend, they believe, that would upend Christianity, you're going to have absolute social chaos in terms of people losing their faith and going through all sorts of horrible internal struggles and battles after hearing the information. So that's why, apparently, the government and military felt it necessary to gather up the pastors first and give them this heads up. So it is the dark narrative. Like I warned, like I suspected, like I postulated, as one of the variable, one of the scenarios that could happen was the dark one. Not that I wanted the dark narrative to, I keep saying scenario, but I mean narrative. Not that I wanted the dark narrative to be the thing that was disclosed or relayed to us, but now we have confirmation, so it is. Um, and the dark narrative, as I've explained many times before, is, and I mean super summed up into like a few sentences, is that evil aliens are in charge. They dominate, they rule, they created us, that God in the Bible is a lie. Religion was just invented to control people. Even Jesus, they say, was an alien put here to help, guide us or something, right? But the worst part of the dark narrative is how they say that it's actually bad beings, evil aliens that rule. They have the dominant power. That's what the dark narrative says. And that we're here as humans on this planet as like a resource for these beings. We're here like cattle, and they harvest us, whether during life or they even claim after we die that they harvest and feed off of our souls. So, like, the dark narrative is quite crippling and depressing. It's not true, right? But it's quite crippling and depressing. And it worries me that, like, I was hoping the dark narrative wouldn't be what is relayed to the public. And like I said before, just to be clear, the bad aliens who have been telling the government and military this for the last 80 plus years, because that's a fact, they have relayed aliens, the bad aliens have relayed the dark narrative, which is a false narrative. But I've always vouched, for the government and military that, that doesn't mean that the government and military believe that dark narrative, right? They may keep it on the table, they might consider it, but who's this? They may not believe it. You know what I mean? But we don't know what the government and military think because they keep everything secret, right? So it's possible that they actually do believe the dark narrative, right? So in all my recent videos, I was explaining this and how when disclosure happens, we have a few options of what we're going to get: a real watered down, boring, mundane UFO disclosure, or we're going to get one that's quite, revealing and impacting, and then we could get one that's the dark narrative, right? And I would like, and I, back in time, I would have liked to think that they wouldn't relay the dark narrative because that would cause the most public upset. However, as like I said, all the dots connect here, right? It just verifies, proves everything that I've always been saying. The only logical reason why they would come out after 80 years of supreme secrecy that people have even lost their lives over, allegedly, and suddenly come out and tell us, and not just start off with baby steps like, oh, hey, UFOs are real, there's aliens, we don't know what they are, blah, blah, blah. Instead of starting off small, no, they come right out swinging for home run with the dark narrative. That tells you logically that something is coming and about to happen that they cannot control, but they know is coming. And you would have to spill the beans before that happens. And would you spill the beans a few years before? No, because then you'd have years of public chaos. Would you spill it months before? Possibly, right? Theologically, I believe, as I teach in my books, you know, either this year or next year is the end, according to all the prophecies and everything. We'll get into that stuff today, right? But as you know, I'm a firm believer in that. So I would say, yeah, we have 1 year or less before this big event occurs. Um, but logically, obviously, that's what's happening. So my worst fears, so to speak, have proven to be true. So evidently, logically, like I said, the big thing that is coming must be getting closer because now that disclosure is starting, it has begun, right? The disclosure occurred with those pastors, those church leaders. And wait to hear some of the details of what they are told and shown. But I lost my train of thought there. But anyways, let me tell you about some of these details, right? Some of the details. Well, they were shown photos, like on the actual phones, like the people giving the talk, military, uh, government people, whoever it was in each their own case. They were literally holding up their own phones and saying and showing the people, the church leaders, aliens, straight up, even ones that I haven't even seen or heard of before, right? So they're showing them that. Okay, allegedly there was reptilians also being shown. Um, I've heard from another source. I've even seen an image that's allegedly one of those images, and could be fake. We live in the age of AI. Who knows? But yes, it looks real, but so does AI. But it ironically looks very similar to the reptilian being that I experienced in my encounter about 20 years ago. Very, very, very similar. The only difference was the color of the skin. That's the only real difference. Um, Very, very little difference. I would say probably about 90% look the same, which kind of sends a shiver down the spine, so to speak. But, anyways, right? So they're showing pictures of aliens. I mean, they're coming out full swing, like I said, right? They're not starting off with baby steps. Full swing. Show the church leaders aliens, even translucent interdimensional seeming beings. um anyway, so that's quite incredible. They're not allowed to talk about most of the things they were told. um I imagine that after this meeting and during the meeting they were told, you're going to hear this information now, go digest it for yourselves, prepare and plan what to say to your congregations, because they were instructed to start telling their congregation. So they've been told that. I don't know if they've been given a date. Maybe they were told don't say anything for a few weeks and then you could say it on blah 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 date. Who knows? But they were instructed to start teaching their congregations, right, to prepare them. Um, and this is not good because they weren't saying, "Oh, prepare your congregations because aliens, this and that." No, they were telling the congregation, "Prepare to have Christianity upended." Like it's not actually going to be, right? As I explained in my other video earlier, right? But that's what they've been telling. Because, like I said, what is evident is they're coming out with the dark narrative. That's what is going to be relayed. Whether the government and the military themselves believe this narrative, I don't know. But that is the narrative that has already been relayed, right? So it's going to happen. It has started. That's what is important for everybody to understand right now. Okay, if we have gotten the dark narrative, and that is what we're going to receive, and I've warned all about it, right? So, uh, they're, the church leaders have been told to tell their congregations, uh, "We've been shown blah blah blah, it's real, and we've been asked to help prepare you." Basically, and I'm not saying this is true, and it's hard to put the right words here. They were told this and they were told to relay this, but the message is a false narrative. That's clarification for everybody. Um, but the pastors be telling their congregations, look, we got shown these things, it's real. Something big is about to happen. There's going to be a big arrival. The aliens are going to come down and they're going to prove to you, like has been proven to military and government, that God is a lie, the Bible is a lie, religion's just a construct, and that these aliens are the ones that created us and put us on this planet and have us here for some type of purpose for them. Okay, basically preparing their congregations for the upheaval and abandonment of Christianity. And they were also told about how these beings are going to give a new type of enlightening that will trump Christianity. Okay, so it's basically going to be the deletion, not really, but the deletion of Christianity, the upending, the upheaval of Christianity. And obviously, the people in charge are afraid that the public, which is majority Christian, is going to lose their minds or become dangerously depressed, if you know what I mean. So it's at the point now where I can't even say, don't say I didn't warn you, because I don't implies it hasn't happened yet, but now it's happened. So, I did warn you. That's how it should be said now. I did warn you. So everything I said is proven to be true and come true. Um, so yeah, what is the big thing that's coming? Well, like I said, this is gonna be probably one of the most important videos I've ever done. This You never would have thought so, but hey, it is, because this is some very deep, powerful, revealing, and even top secret stuff that I will be sharing openly here. Some things I've never shared before. Um, to the YouTube public. I've shared it to certain individuals in my private and secret talks that I have. Um, but yeah, something big is coming. Now, like I've said before, that's what I talk about in my books here that are available on Amazon, right? And the time for teaching and warning is running out, right? But it could be weeks, months away, or within a year type of thing. Just like I've been warning, it could be. It's probably going to be that soon. If they're telling the church leaders this stuff now, it's probably soon, right? Probably soon. So easily within a year, I would say, right? If they're telling us now, you wouldn't want a few years or even 2 years of public chaos. So it's probably very soon. But anyways, right? What is coming is a great cosmic battle that's going to take place, a great arrival. You could call it that as well. There's going to be big space rocks crashing down to the Earth. That's one aspect of it. And the other thing is arrival of spaceships, well, of good aliens and bad aliens. And the good beings that are coming here are actually legitimately the army, the legions of the heavens that Jesus will be bringing. And the bad ones, the bad beings, are the ones who've been stuck here. And I've always postulated they might also the bad ones who are imprisoned on Earth might be allowed to also reside on the moon, perhaps on the dark side of the moon, as has always been alleged, because maybe the moon is counted as part of Earth, right? So that's also interesting to consider. So they may not be entirely based on Earth. They might be also, the bad ones might be also based on the moon, which is what all the allegations have been saying from certain whistleblowers and figures over all the decades. But in either case, the good armies are going to arrive and the bad armies are going to show up, right? And for the people of Earth, it's just going to look like a mass arrival of UFOs. And people are going to be seeing what are bad aliens and beings arrive. And to them, they might think, oh, these bad aliens are arriving from outer space, but they're not actually. If they're coming from the moon, they technically are, but they're not coming from outer space. But there will be fleets of craft arriving from outer space. These will be the good beings, the armies of the heavens coming. So what we will see tangibly as humans on this earth is, in whatever particular order, and just based off the scripture. I could talk about my end days dream in a bit, but going by the scripture primarily, which does my dream does align with Revelations 9, does align with the scripture. But going off the scripture first, we are going to see space rocks arrive, and we are going to see these things arrive. I believe space rocks start hitting first, but we're not here to pick cherries. I mean, or nitpick or whatever. I mean, it could be either or both at the same time. But these are the things that are coming in my end days dream, which I won't get into detail at this moment. The first thing that occurs in that dream sequence that I've had my whole life is that a big fiery rock, meteor, whatever it might be, asteroid, comet, something, plows into the earth and sends the earth into darkness. And it's during the dark. As soon as the darkness starts, instantly a cosmic battle takes place overhead. And then during this period of darkness, all sorts of creatures and beings appear on the earth and wreak havoc and essentially attack and devour mankind, which sounds horrifying, but it is what the Bible told us would occur in Revelation 9. Um, so that is what's coming, right? And now that we've heard, and it's not even speculation anymore, like that is what is coming, and it's being confirmed by the fact that the dark narrative has been relayed, right? All of, you know, when the bad beings show up, we don't know if they're going to be able to fool, deceive, manipulate us, if it's for minutes, hours, days, weeks, months. We don't know for sure. We have to be prepared for any type of window like that. And arguably, they have been, and I've said so in my books, arguably, in a very true sense, they have been doing that manipulation since 1948, 1949, when the period of 4,900 years imprisonment under the earth was up. Again, I've talked about that in many other videos. I'm not going to devote more time and minutes just to that specific, hyper specific topic. Um, but that prophecy was given to Enoch. It's in the book of First Enoch. The start of the measure is 500 years before the flood, like it says. I give the dates and the numbers and everything biblically supplied in my book. Right, it's 100% accurate and factual. And 4,900 years from that date, lands you smack on was either 1948, 1949, end of the Second World War, and when UFOs started showing up, right? And let it be known that in the mid to late 40s, when the UFOs started showing up, uh, they were telling people the dark narrative, right? So when they were captured, or not interrogated, either interrogated or interviewed, or they met with members of military and government, even back in the mid to late 40s, they were relaying not all of the aliens, but some of them relayed what is, as I call, the dark narrative, right? So the dark narrative is not a new thing that showed up in the 80s or 90s. That's my point. It was here from day one with the beings showing up. Okay. Um, So, anyways, however, in truth, they've been manipulating us since then. But because of the secrecy, and there's still some, they're not allowed yet to come full out to the opens, right? So, in some way, their imprisonment period has ended. Some of them were released, and we know from Revelation 9 that when the end actually comes, a large number of them are released. So there must be some type of tier system to the release, right? Maybe the little guys got released in the 40s, but the big shot bad guys get released at the end of days, right? And that could be it as well, right? So there has been manipulation over the last 80 years. Don't get me wrong by my prior statement. But when the worst of the worst manipulation occurs, that will be when the arrival of the bad beings happens, right? And when they're here, we don't know if that's going to be minutes, hours, like I was just saying, right? Or days or weeks or months or what, or a full year, we don't know. But whatever length of time that they will have, that is when the arrival has happened. So they're not going to be like reclusive like they've been for the last 80 years. It's going to be, nope, they're landing. People are going to openly see it. And it's the arrival. That's what's entailed in an arrival. Okay. And they could actually show face before the armies of Christ arrive. That's the other thing. The Bible doesn't hyper specify on some aspects of the overall, line of events. And I go through the events of Revelation, break it down. An excellent chapter in my book, right? Critical reading, right? Nobody wants to believe me, but now it's time to believe me because I've been right this whole time, evidently. But I want everybody to be prepared because, like I said, to stress, we don't know how long the big shot deception is going to be occurring for. Okay, now those big bad guys could show up in full force when they're allowed to visibly arrive. Like the rule, the cosmic rule says, okay, yeah, now you can do it, right? And when that happens, we might have months under their deception. So just be prepared. It might not be at the last minute, in that last hour as Christ arrives. Oh, the bad guys show up. It may not be like that. In my end days dream, nobody saw a cosmic battle until the rock hit the earth and the earth went into darkness. And then within a couple seconds, we saw a cosmic battle suddenly start, right? But it may not be that the bad guys show up right when the good guys show up. The bad guys might show up a little bit ahead of time. That would kind of make sense because they're imprisoned on this earth. And like I said, maybe also the moon, right? So we have to be open and consider that they could show up and exert this major deception from, like, literally from them to us, them arriving and deceiving us, we might have to endure that for a while. Okay. But whenever it happens, it's still going to be the same dark narrative, right? So I want to teach everybody again and warn everybody about that, what you're going to hear, what you're going to see, what you're going to be told, so that you can prepare yourself, right? This is the time for preparation now. Um, Even so, I'm not saying anybody here specifically, but even some of my closest followers, just as an arbitrary neutral example, right? Even my closest followers or anybody else like me who knew the truth has been warning of the truth, and it's a very narrow band of people who might even be in that scenario. But let's just say there could be others out there, these elect wise ones who are on the right path of understanding and knowing what's coming, and the right theology. There's not many people in the world, right? But giving credit to humanity, there's probably, hopefully, there's many others like me and others out there who've known what's coming, who figured out what the Bible's been saying, is knows the information that's out there in UFOlogy, has pieced it together. And I would like to hope and think that there are, but even, and I mean this honestly, any one of us, even myself, even the teachers in that scenario, could easily, even with everything that I know and have warned about, any one of us, even myself, in the teacher position, who should know better more than anybody else, we could very well be deceived. Because as I've warned, these beings have, there's many different types. They have intellects that are far superior to ours. Like I said, I encountered direct, firsthand, tangible, physical encounter with a reptilian 20 years ago. And I can mention all these things when I get to it in their own time in this video. But let me tell you, that's the only experience I've had firsthand. But that was a very, very powerful being, and I cannot state that enough. I remember when I was in its presence, and as it walked up to me, the level, it was like how a magnet emanates that magnetic field, like a strength, and the closer you get to it, the pull is harder. I'm not saying it was pulling me towards it, but that strength of like an emanated field, the closer it got to me, the stronger and stronger, and it was just overpowering. The level of just intellect and mind that this being had, it like emanated. And as I got closer, it just, it overrides, it enters your thought space. These are things humans don't even think about or perceive until it happens, and it's hard to put them into words. But as it gets closer, its mind just overshadows yours. It's like, because maybe its mind is emanating outwards. I don't know how, like some an electromagnetic way. And as it gets closer to you, that is just trumps your own. You know what I mean? And you're like a little kid lost in the wilderness, and its mind is like 1,000 IQ and just overpowering to you, right? And I just felt like, I can get into that experience later, but let me tell you, these beings, they're not something that, a lot of Christians think, oh, you could just pray it away in the name of Jesus. That might work sometimes, some people against some of the beings, but let me bloody well warn you. God bless you if you think that's all you need to defend yourself, but, and this is no disrespect to God, but let me tell you, there's been a lot of times, even in my own life, where I used to, I went through many, and I don't often share this. I spent years where I was being paralyzed in the middle of the night, and I know about sleep paralysis. This was not sleep paralysis. One time I can confirm it was not, because of one instance, one time I can confirm it was not sleep paralysis. Even though the dozens of times or hundreds of times I went through it for all those years, having gone through it, I definitely don't think is mere sleep paralysis. When you go through it yourself and you're pushing and straining with all your human strength to even move your eyelid and it won't move, to even move your tongue and it can't move, with all your strength, feeling like you're going to break your bones, you're straining so hard and you can't even make your finger move, right? But one time I had that, I was woken up by the sound of something at the foot of my bed, stepping on this plastic bag of clothes that I had put there the night before. I thought an intruder was in my room because I could hear it stepping on the bag. And I opened my eyes, or it allowed me to open my eyes. But that's when I realized I was paralyzed and I couldn't move. I couldn't turn my head to look down. Even at the foot of my bed, 5 feet away, there's something standing there. I could hear it moving on the plastic bag. big, big sized creature. And I couldn't even turn my eyes to look at it. I was horrified. Like that is a fear. Like holy moly, you don't even know. That was absolutely terrifying. And I prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed, and it did nothing. And I've always been a devout Christian, a really good person, especially in my younger years. Was expecting to be saved. But that's why I'm just warning you people. And it's nothing against God, because every scenario is unique. Things happen for a reason, right? It's not taking away from God or Jesus or anything, but I'm just warning you folks. Because a lot of Christians out there think, oh, I could just say the name of Jesus and it will disappear. Just don't always rely on that. You don't want to believe me, fine. You'll learn the hard way. Some of you will. Yeah, I just wanted to help prepare people. These beings, each being is different, obviously, but some of these beings, as I've experienced, have intellects that are so powerful. And as I thought to myself, as that reptilian approached me that time, and straight up to me, like a couple feet away from me, and we had this long encounter. He showed me. Anyways, I can get into it later. I remember thinking to myself that, and he never showed, the being never showed any telekinetic power. He never made things rise or move with his mind power, like a magic person you'd see from the movies. But I could just sense that he could, because the level of power of its mind was so powerful. It's not even that the being was, he might have said it to me, I can't remember, but I just knew and felt that if the being wanted to, it could rise me up in the air with its mind and toss me over the ledge that we were on, down into the huge dark chasm, down into the bottom of the cavern. um, Terrifying. And I also remember feeling like this one being alone, with just its mind and not even any instrument or weapon or use of its hands or limbs, this one being could take down an entire room, if not building, of humans. Tens of people to hundreds of people, just with its mind. That's how powerful it is. Um, so this is no laughing matter. These beings are not something that when they appear, this is why I'm saying all this. Like, you might think, oh, and the beings appear because they're demons. You might erroneously think, that's a whole nother explanation I have to get into. I did in my other video, so I won't repeat it here, right? But things are very complex, right? To explain things, saving that here. But a lot of people are just going to be like, oh, I could just say the name of Jesus and it'll go away. That's why I'm warning you, because that might work for some people because of whatever reason God's allowed, but for a lot of people, it's not going to work. Okay, these aren't just cartoon characters that will show up one day, little green men, and you could just make them go away with a fairy tale wish. No, and I'm not saying God and Jesus is a fairy tale. Don't misunderstand me. You can't just wish it away like that. These beings, when they arrive, again, there's many different beings, and they're each different, but like the one I experienced, there might even be more powerful ones out there, powerful types than the one I experienced. When they arrive, it's gonna be a whole another ball game. You might not even be able to move. You might not even be able to speak when they're in your presence. So just be prepared. And that's why the Bible's warned us it's a spiritual battle, because it's not just with the flesh, like it says. If you're the best example, if one of these beings appears, paralyzes you, you can't even move, and it's sitting there infiltrating your mind, overlaying, I don't even know the right word for it, but just like I said, that emanation, which is its mind, just trumps yours. You're still there, your mind's still there, but it's lost in the wilderness of this over-powerful mind that has overpowered yours and is like over yours. I don't even know how to explain it. um, when that's happening to you and it's speaking to you and relaying things to you in visual and audio form and everything, in all ways you could imagine and in ways you couldn't even imagine and never imagined, and you're frozen still and you can't even budge, that's when all my warnings are going to be more important to heed. Okay, so be prepared. This is the type of beings that we will encounter. These are the strengths and the powers of these beings, and this is not even their technology, this is just their bodies. They're extremely powerful. They're far more advanced, millions and millions, if not billions of years. Again, there's many different races and groups, but millions, even billions of years more advanced than us. I don't know definitively if billions, but definitively millions of years more advanced than us. We would never, with our puny human minds, even be able to fathom the level of technology and science that they possess. we wouldn't even be able to begin to fathom the tip of that iceberg. It would be beyond what we could ever conceive. Like all our notions of science with quantum physics and everything have come over just about 150 to 200 years of science development. And back then we were still using horse and buggy and riding donkeys and putting buckets down a well to get water. Okay, and in 200 years now we have rockets and computers and AI and quantum physics and all of that. That's just 200 years. That's baby talk. Okay, when you're talking about a civilization or civilizations that are millions of years more advanced than us, you couldn't even begin to fathom their science. Don't even pretend that you could, right? So, like I said, when they appear, when these beings appear, just even biologically, just their bodies, not even using any instruments, devices, or weapons or technology, they are so much more superior than humans. You will feel like a mosquito compared to them. Um, Heaven forbid they pull out some weapons or technology. You could only imagine what they could do with it. They're fully capable of relaying either real or completely false, absolutely lifelike holograms to you. You wouldn't even be able to tell if it was fake. You wouldn't even be able to tell it looked dead real. They're probably going to, most likely, probably almost guaranteed that they're going to show whatever class of beings, I don't know, but the beings that are going to be arriving, it's all part of this uh, great disclosure, they're going to be most likely showing us footage of biblical events tailored to make these negative beings look like our actual creators, and that the Bible was all their or our construct in part, based on their influence. In order to deceive us, they could show us a lifelike hologram of, they'll look real. It won't look like, a Tupac hologram. It'll look real, of Jesus dying on the cross, Jesus teaching and everything, Jesus being born, and they could put in whatever they want with their alien AI tech. And I'm only saying AI because that's what we best relate to. Their level of deception that they're capable of is beyond anything you could even comprehend. And that's why I've warned everybody that when these beings arrive and they start doing this deception, that you have to be fully prepared in advance. Because even the elect, even the wisest, even the teachers, and the Bible warns this, even they will be deceived by these ones that show up at the end of days. Right? The unclean spirits that are like frogs that will go out to the leaders and the elect of the world and fool them, even the elect. Okay? So you have been warned by me. You have been warned, right? Be prepared. Don't anybody, even myself, think I could never be fooled by them. Because yes, you could. It's that dead real. And that's, they could also force us to believe something, right? To threat of harm. That's a whole different ballgame. I'm talking about, the softer version where they come down, land, and just politely tell us, hey, the Bible's a lie. We're your creators. Hey, there you go. Would you like it? No, they might actually be forcing us to believe it as well, right? So you have to consider that one. But again, I don't want to fearmonger people. I mean, they might only have this time span to do that major arrival manipulation, if you want to call it that, for a day. We don't know how long it's going to be, but we have to be wise and be prepared for whatever scenario. It could be up to a year. We don't know. But we have to be prepared. And coming from it, what worries me about all the other Christian pastors, of course, they're not going to invite me to this meeting. I mean, if they had known about me or looked at my channels for all the 10 years I've been on YouTube, they would realize I probably don't even need to tell him because everything he's saying is what we're about to tell these other folk. So they probably didn't need to waste the plane ticket money. But in either case, it would have been cool to see some alien photos. But my point is, not tooting my own horn, but I feel bad for those other pastors that got called out to that meeting because there's no Christians, there's no church on the planet, no major church. There might be a little one here or there, and I hope there is. There's no major denomination even, let alone major church on the planet that teaches the correct Christian theology. There's only about 150 million non-Trinitarians on the planet. And that's just the hemisphere denomination of the correct type of Christianity. That's still not even the correct theology, absolutely. It's a niche of non-Trinitarianism. And you could probably count the teachers of that true doctrine probably on one or two hands in the entire world. And does God require everybody to have theology 100% correct to get salvation? I don't know. I'm not God. Whatever. I'm not here to talk about that. But what scares me is that all these other pastors that got called out, they're not even in the right flock to start with. And I really hope God has mercy on them because, they, I'm not God. I hope He does, but I can't speak for God. It's not for me to worry about. But I can worry about it, but I can't do anything about it. It's not my business. You know what I mean? But I just worry because they've been told this truth, and all I can think is that. And I heard one of the pastors who's at the secret meetings. He said that, I'm not going to let this shake me. I'm just going to tell my congregation, don't believe this and blah blah blah. Well, it's easy to say that now when the beings aren't standing in front of you. And what worries me is that when this arrival does occur, that all those leaders, even the ones who were given this disclosure, or already, they're all going to fall for it. And some of them might staunchly stand up, no, I believe in Jesus and I'll never believe these lies. Some of them might be strong enough to withstand that, but at the end of the day, they're not even in the right theology. And most of them believe what is heresy. Satan did a good job at polluting, polluting the church. He did a really good job of that, blinding everybody to what Islam really is, the final beast kingdom. Satan did a really good job. He was really effective. I'm not bigging him up. I'm just saying he was very effective in what he did. He fooled he fooled not only everybody on the planet, but even the Christians. He's fooled the vast majority of them. But anyways, nobody wanted to. Very few have listened to my theology teachings. But that's what I was saying at the start of the video. The time for teaching is running out, and the time for warning is even running out. It's up to God as the judge what He wants to do. But if you want to believe something heretical about Jesus and God and how you're supposed to, your interpretation of the Bible theology is actually apostate or even heretic, where do you stand on Judgment Day? And I feel bad for all these people because, they got given the disclosure first. They're going to go tell their congregations, and all their congregations are they're going to stay in their theological folds, cowering and shivering, waiting for this big reveal, the arrival. And all they have to anchor on is, oh, we rebuke you in the name of Jesus. And will God save them if they were apostate and heretical to start with? I feel bad for them. I'm not saying God's not going to help them or save them. But what if He doesn't? He punished Israel for doing and believing what was wrong. He'll punish the Christians likewise who are believing and doing what is wrong. But anyways, that's just my personal concern. This is my video, so I'm going to talk about it. But yeah, so the dark narrative. But anyways, this is not a coincidence. And the only time I've shared, and I'll mention this just to wrap it up. In my secret meetings and talks, I wouldn't say who, what, when, or where, and I can say this. But the individual, the gentleman that I was speaking to, it was a virtual meeting. I wasn't there physically face to face, but we were talking face to face. And I asked him, because I know and believe what is coming, based on my Bible studies, based on the end days prophecies, based on even considering my end days prophetic dreams, considering all of that, I know and believe what is coming. And so I asked him, I said, is something coming? Because I know the answer is yes. I've got videos up where I go through like 20 sources from over a 40-year period that talk about the thing that's coming, and it lines up with what the Bible says, right? So I asked him, I want to see what he would say. He is, without saying who he is, I would say, the number one figure in all of UFOlogy. He's a big shot, and he's a very nice person. And I'm not going to say anything else because I don't want to give any type of clue as to who it is. But he actually has held a very authoritative position in either government or military. I know which, but I won't specify because I don't want to give any clues to who this person is. But he's an awesome person. I was honored to be able to speak to him the number of times that I have. And I asked him, and he confirmed, yes, something is coming. Everybody knows something is coming, and that's why they're building a weapon, or they built a weapon to shoot it down with. So that was a huge admission. but it didn't surprise me whatsoever. The only thing that was news to me was about the weapon, but I mean, you could only logically figure they're going to do something like that. So it didn't shock me at all. What the only thing that shocked me was hearing him, this number one figure, state that. And no, it wasn't Jeremy Corbell or Lou Elizondo. That's what I'm going to say. It wasn't them. Um, but anyways, so that you can't get a confirmation that is any more official than that. And people may not believe me. I could care less. We're way past the point of, you have time to bicker and worry about this. I'm telling you the facts. You don't want to listen. I don't care. It's too bad for you. Right. That is, in my opinion, the number one figure. Others might say in the top five or whatever. Right. But the most influential figure ever in the field of UFOlogy whatsoever. Um, in terms of, anyways, I won't give away anymore. So we've had the absolute confirmation as well. So it's not just in the Bible. We've got confirmation from one of the best sources that yes, something's coming. Um, we got this disclosure to the church leaders, which is confirming that as well. So all the dots are correlating and confirming one another. Now, 20 years ago, when I had my experiences with God, I had around that time I guess in retrospect, it was an abduction. I never thought about it like that at the time, but I was taken, instantly taken, and I was somewhere else, teleported somewhere else. I was fully wide and awake before it happened. It just, bam, I was suddenly somewhere else in this cavern. And that's when the reptilian was there. He walked up to me along this long walkway. There was a huge drop, hundreds or whatever feet down this dark um, cavern. It was absolutely massive. You could fly airplanes around it. It was so huge. But anyways, he spoke to me and talked to me for a long time about stuff. But I can't remember any of it except for a few things that he said, because his intellect was so great and powerful. And he would sometimes use words that I could understand, but other times he would just, you know, I guess he felt lazy doing that. And he went back into how he would naturally talk. And it's just above your level. You couldn't comprehend it. But he was making an effort to help me to comprehend it. And the higher speech was like, it was like visual and audio at the same time in one thing. It was hard to explain. Like you're being shown things, not like scenes or like a video, but like in weird geometric, even artful, abstract ways that just you couldn't even imagine if you had to. And in some way, like something rotating like a fractal type thing is able to relay information to you because of what it looks like and what it's doing. And I guess maybe because the reptilian was helping me to understand that type of language. That's the level of language. Like when you think about it, like alphabets and everything is so like simplistic, right? It's like little shapes. And we give a sound to each of the shapes, and we use those little sounds to make words, and then words to make sentences, right? That's how our human languages work, right? This being's language, I mean, he doesn't say a sentence. Well, he can speak if he wanted to, like how we do. But when he speaks, when he spoke, it wasn't like a sentence of like binary type words like that. It was like a like Belcher blurt out this like fractal, that's all I could call it, something like that you're seeing and hearing and understanding and interpreting at all one time. And it's hyper moving and doing all this stuff, but in some way every movement and thing that it does is relaying information to you like how language does, right? And it makes sense to you, like you understand it, like how you look at the sun and you see the sun and you understand it's the sun. The same thing, you're watching, seeing and hearing this form of higher communication and you just understand it, right? But you can't put it into words. So for that reason, I can't remember anything he said except for one thing. He said that humans are like vermin, or either humans are like, or that they are vermin on this planet. But during the whole experience, the being wasn't overtly evil or anything. He was very intimidating. A lot of other people might think it just looked evil, and a lot of people might think it felt evil or came across as evil. But I tried to be neutral, and it didn't harm me. It didn't, berate me. It didn't say or do anything bad towards me in any way at all. And I don't remember, from what I remember, it saying really anything else negative. I could be wrong, but from what I remember, the only thing I remember it saying that could be perceived as negative is that statement that humans are vermin or like vermin on this planet. And I think it wasn't necessarily saying that. It may have been, but it wasn't necessarily saying that from an evil perspective. It could just been from an honest perspective. You know what I mean? We look down at rats and think they're dirty, disgusting, they eat one another, and all sorts of nonsense. We don't like cockroaches for the same ways, and they're just so above us that when they look down at us, they view us like vermin on this planet, right? And the way we attack and fight each other all the time. And it showed me this gigantic holographic display screen opened up in the midst of the cavern, massive screen. Probably take, like a little while for an airplane to fly across, probably thousands of feet across. It was massive. And he showed me all these scenes from human history. A lot of them were just violence and terrible things that humans did to each other, a lot of different wars from different tribes and regions and places across time. And it was horrifying watching it all. And it turned my stomach. I remember seeing what looked like Vikings or people that resemble like Vikings with like their fur and leather outfits and everything, fighting each other with axes and swords and chopping each other apart and all this hard stuff that used to happen. And the whole perspective of all the footage was as if it was being taken by a drone, like 50 feet or 100, maybe just 50 feet above all these footages. Um, like the little spheres that fly around the Earth now, probably. But that's what it did. It showed me all that, right? But as far as the things that it told me and all this, I don't remember anything else, just to be honest. Um, but I think that experience was important because, A, it showed me that uh, these aliens are real. Uh, Higher beings, advanced beings are real. Reptilians are real. He looked very human. He was about 7, 8, maybe a little bit more feet tall, quite larger than me. And he had jet black skin. That was like a beautiful snake type skin with very fine scales, with very beautiful, soft, smooth, and luxurious. Very had a high sheen to it. Had a chromatic color shift effect as it moved. Even though the skin was black as it moved, it had like a peacock or starling feather effect, where it'd make an array of beautiful rainbow colors. And it was the most amazing looking being. I just being neutrally honest. I mean, it really was spectacular. He had this incredible and imposing outfit on. It was like a cloak cape type outfit. Looked pretty cool, and even that was color shifting as well, similar to how his skin was. And had a hood over, but the bits of the body that I could see, like the arms and the face, I think that was about it. Skin wise, were like I said, jet black. The face looked human, but at the same time, it looked serpent like. Um, it didn't have like a muzzle. It had like a quite a human looking skull shape, but just a little bit different. Like it would be a race of human that we'd never seen before, right? That lost to time, like very human, but different from what we have, but not that different that it doesn't look human. But the skin was serpent like I said. Um, the other slight differences were the eyes looked different. It had like yellow, orange, or red eyes. I can't remember exactly which color, unfortunately, but something like that. It was somewhat alarming when you first saw it, um, because of the color and the way it stood out. The eyes weren't really big or anything. Like the layout and the sizing and all that proportions are very human like, not too far off from it. But the color of the eyes was different. The shape of the mouth was different. It had prominent cheekbones. The angle of the eyes was very unique as well. Not very different from humans, but it didn't have like a standard European type eye socket eye layout. Um, Perhaps more Asian or something, but not necessarily. It just it didn't look like the standard format. Like they're slightly different position, or maybe it was the way like the skin, like the folds above and below the eye, make it look like that angle. But it didn't have like a muzzle or anything like that there. But it didn't have like a completely human looking jaw area. So it had a slight projection. Um, but not like a reptile would, right? A reptile would have like a muzzle. It didn't have a muzzle, but it wasn't like if you looked at the face, like all of it looked very human, except for like the mouth area and the eyes. And I couldn't see the top of the head because the cloak was covering the top of its head. Whether it had horns or not, who knows? Couldn't see its ears, but that's what it looked like. And I asked that same gentleman, that number one figure, like I said, I asked him about that one time. I was very excited to ask him because I've been waiting my whole life to ask somebody trustworthy. I said, "Do you know of a being like that?" And he said, shockingly, he actually said, "I'm not too sure." Um, he obviously he knows reptilians are real, but the unique thing is the color of the skin and how it changes color. Right, the black skin that changes color is quite a unique feature. And that's why I want. I mean, everybody knows reptilians are out there. I didn't need to ask him to hear that. Like whether he said yes or no or not, I already believed that there are reptilians. But as far as the one that I saw, I wanted to know. And he didn't sound too sure, but he said it sounds similar to. It was either the which one was it? I don't think it was trantaloid. It was heptaloid, not heptaloid, archquilloid, one of those types. I can't remember which one. The name's evading me right now. One of the 4 or 5 standard types that the government and military have known about for a long time. And at first I was like, well, I've heard of them. And I was thinking to myself, I've heard of those, but I don't remember any of them being reptilian. But when I looked it up, I was shocked. And I did more research and I found out, no, whichever one of the types it was, they do have, under that name type, there are two different classes of those beings. One of them is reptilian. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that. But he wasn't too sure about the jet black color changing skin. But he found it very, very intriguing and interesting, though. So I just thought I'd mention that. So no, I'm not going to lie and say, oh, he came out and said, oh yeah, those are real. These are blah blah blah. He wasn't too sure what it could be. He said the closest thing you could think of was, like I said, one of those. Um, but anyway, so I mentioned that experience there, and the other thing I would mention is I don't have a lot more time. I got to get going, but I want to read these things. So I'll refer, instead of talking about the following things, I'll refer everybody because I already made videos about them. If you go to my dreams playlist on my channel, you can watch my end days dream. It's in full. I'm pretty sure I've got testimonies up there about it. I also spent 15 pages in my end days book detailing the dream, an excellent compilation of things that occur. Um, it's like it is living the arrival of the end days, what happens in what order and all that in full graphic detail or in full detail. Um, so go check the dreams playlist. You can go check the UFO ET playlist that I have. I got a lot of important videos and discussions on there where I get more in detail about the dark narrative and all of that. But just to rehash it again, I think I mentioned earlier in this video, but the dark narrative, yeah, I did. Yeah, the dark narrative says that evil beings actually run the planet. They're in control, that God is a lie, that they are what we perceive to be as gods. The Bible is fake, it's an invention, and blah, 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 right? And worse off that technically worse is that they just use us like cattle and harvest us and harvest our souls after we die and feed off of our soul energy. So according to that narrative, we're just guinea pigs to them, food and guinea pigs in a sense, or like batteries. But that's a false narrative. But anyways, right? You can see all that information there. I don't have time to talk about these things. I've talked about them in better detail in those, but you got to hear the dream in the dream playlist, not even the end days dream videos, but just the dreams I had over the last 1 year. There were 2 or 3, and I've got videos about them. One was about an orb UFO that was transparent with like alien gray flying inside of it, watching people. Nobody could see it. I could see it, blah, blah, blah. Check that one out. The most interesting one, 2 of them, are where the motherships arrive. Like that, check that one out. If it's real, only God could say if it was real. It certainly felt darn real. But I saw what's coming. I saw the massive city-sized mothership or motherships arrive up in the sky, and the aliens actually came down on the ground and were apprehending people. And one of them came right up to my face, like a foot or 2 away, and was about to apprehend me. And I turned and ran. It's full detail. I can still picture it. That was extremely real. I could very well have seen gotten a glimpse of actually what is going to happen. And apparently, this is what is coming. So I might as well have actually seen it in the dream. That's my point. So go watch that. What's the other one that's... and I also had like a follow-up video where I think came after that one, more recent than that one, where I had the end days dream again, where the UFOs arrive at that point, and how there's many of them and lots of activity and stuff going on in the sky. And as I say that right now, it's haunting me because I feel like I did have that again recently and forgot when I woke up. Because when you see it, it's like right now I'm looking down because I'm looking in my mind and just remembering seeing what I saw up in the sky. And for many years of my life, I could never see the UFOs arriving. It was only until the last year or so when I started to see the UFOs arriving in my dream. And yeah, so go check out those videos there. But I got to mention this before I go. So back when I had my experiences with God, and also that abduction experience with the reptilian, around that time I made my one and only attempt to do a channeling. So I wanted to channel, I think it was the Greys at the time. So I made an attempt, a legitimate attempt, prayed to God for help and assistance and protection, made the attempt, and they, kindly and politely relayed the following to me. So I wrote it down. So this is about 20 years old right here. I shared it with the group where I had my secret talks with. I didn't share it with everybody in the group. At a more, when there's less people around one time, I shared it. But this is what was told to me by the Greys. I also did a picture of what the beings looked like. This was it here. Whether it specifically is a gray or a similar type like Eben or whatever, who knows, right? But that's what it looked like. Right there. But yeah, so this is what they told me. And this is the dark narrative. Okay? This is the dark narrative. They don't go super deep like we eat your souls after you die, but this is the dark narrative in baby form. And this is what we're going to be told. And I felt like an idiot sharing this with people. People just think I'm crazy. The only people I've ever in my life shared it with was with that secret group that I meet with. I shared it with them once and once only. And I felt like an idiot sharing it, even with them. And I don't know their honest opinions of it. They probably do think I'm crazy. But guess what? Now it's all true. So this is what they told me 20 years ago. And again, this is a lie. This is the false narrative, but this is what they told me. Okay, you are our creation, meaning humans. You are our creation. We hold the patent, our DNA sequences. Creation is our hobby and business. Your creation was for a purpose, it was not purposeless. We came to your planet 6 million years ago. Since then, we have evolved greatly. Our race commandeers the cosmos, but we are not alone. We left no traces so as not to disturb your evolution in our first visit. We have been monitoring your evolution for 6 million years. One day you will be like us. Now, let me stop there because this was said to me 20 years ago. The Greys told me, or the Ebens, whichever one, told me, one day you will be like us. It's right there, right? One day you will be like us. Now, guess what? I think it was Robert Dean. It was Robert Dean or Clifford Stone. I think it was Robert Dean. I went and fact checked it recently in the last couple months, and I found the source. He did verifiably say that he was told or heard the exact same statement from the Greys or Ebens, word for word. One day you will be like us. So apparently they didn't just tell me that, they told other people that. Who heard it first, me or him, who knows? But how's that, right? So going on, one day you will be like us. Intelligence is the great divide. Religion is a construct of man. We gave no religion. Man in vain tried to reach us. The rogue ones in our midst did give higher knowledge to you to accelerate your evolution. So what they're doing here, this is part of the dark narrative, is that these ones who are bad guys are going to come up and try to fool us, right? Into basically bowing to them as God. But even in their false narrative, they're making it look like this is how subtle the serpent was, right? Cunning. They're trying to separate themselves and pretend that there's an actual bad group. So they don't want to portray themselves like evil. They're trying to portray themselves as nice or neutral and say that, oh, but there was a group of bad ones of us who did the following. All right. So I just want to clarify that for people. So when it said the rogue ones in our midst did give higher knowledge to you, they're trying to claim, oh, those were the fallen angels, when really they themselves are also the fallen angels, right? But anyways, the rogue ones in our midst did give higher knowledge to you to accelerate your evolution as part of a science experiment. But we gave no such command. Your concept of reality is futile and limited by your intelligence. We are immortal. Now, whether they truly are, who knows, right? But that's what they claimed. We are immortal. We bow to our superiors. We made you mortal to limit you for a purpose. One day, and that's probably for the harvesting claim, right? One day you will bow to us. Said that to me. One day you will bow to us, right? As your superiors, as it should be. it says. When the time is right, right? That's going to be the big arrival time. Now, we are lords over our creation, but we are a creation by our own superiors, our lords, and we have utter control over you, meaning humanity. We have utter control over you. I'm not saying we will, but we have utter control over you. And when the time has come, probably meaning the arrival, we will take total control over you. So if you really stop and analyze what they told me, they're saying we have utter control over you. But there will come a time where we will take total control over you, right? That's when they always had the muscle. That's when they're going to flex the muscle, right? So when the time has come, we will take total control over you and rule you when the time of purpose has come. Man called the comely ones in our midst angels and even gods, yet called the uncomely ones, meaning hideous or scary looking ones in our midst, devils and demons. Again, this is part of the deception, the subtle, cunning deception, where they're trying to separate, distance themselves when really, no, they are the fallen angels. They're trying to make it look like they're the good ones, and another group are the fallen angels, right? And the last paragraph that they relayed was, man repeatedly fell victim to rogue ones whom sought rulership and influence over tribes of man, as long as these rogue ones were of comely appearance. And so it will be until the time of purpose arrives. So what they're going to do with that false narrative is they're going to say that's what's going to be said to us when they land. I'm telling you now. It's going to be either exactly that or along those very, very lines. I'm telling you now. Mark my words. Right? And they're going to butter themselves up and make this other group out to be the rogue ones who ended up duping humans into creating religions. Okay? That's all part of the deception. And like I said, they have all the technology to fool us and prove it to us, make it look dead real to us with these lifelike holograms. And what's humanity going to do? What would you say when you see stuff like that? They show you them creating Jesus, the bad guy, allegedly, the bad guy aliens creating Jesus and putting him here. That's what they're going to say. And the ones telling you that narrative when this day comes are actually going to be the bad aliens. Okay? This is deep stuff. Multi-layered deep stuff. That's why I've been trying to warn people for years, is that you can't just get it all off the top of your head the first time you hear it. It's deep. It's got lots of layers, because they're not going to come with one method of deception. They've got multi-layered deception here. They got 100 layers. They don't get you on 5 of the 100. They got you on the other 95 layers. Okay? You have to be ready for each one of those layers. And that's what I try to do to help prepare people. And I wrote this one around the same time. This is not a channeling. This is just a little prophecy type thing that I wrote. So I'll just read it all. Okay? I can't remember why I wrote it, but it's one of my inspired writings. I've got tons of books that I filled up with the writings I did around the time I had my experiences with God. I was very inspired at the time. So I wrote, and this is pertaining to the end days. Like what is a sign of the end days coming? That's what this is for, right? So I'll just read it. So I say, I've got to go. So I'll see you all next time, all right?